Another top 5 now that all the flagships for the first half of 2015 have been unveiled. As ever, there were a number of other handsets I could have recommended that were bubbling under: my Lumia 930, one of the phones on my main rotation, a Snapdragon 800 Windows Phone, a great screen and a great camera, the Nexus 6, if only it were a bit smaller, the new Huawei P8, which I was impressed by, but didn't seem to have any really unique selling points, the HTC One M9, still too expensive. Leaving, this is the brand new Lumia 640 XL, actually a lower spec overall than the 930, but notable here for being a 5.7-inch screen phablet with super contrast, a surprisingly good camera with Zeiss optics, an insanely loud speaker like the 640s in the previous phone show, a removable battery, micro SD expandable glance screen, and more, all for, get it, £180 on pay-as-you-go in the UK, a third the price of the likes of other phablets like the Galaxy Note 4, etc. In other words, you get a lot for not very much cash laid out. The iPhone 6 Plus and Phone Show 238, by far the best and most flexible iPhone yet. The interface at last works in landscape mode, unlike on the 6, as well as portrait, meaning that you can enjoy the 6 Plus as a tablet media player or as part of a laptop-like setup, armed with a Bluetooth keyboard. Added an excellent camera and a blazingly fast processor, and the only catch is the size and the price. If you have to ask, then you can't afford it. So the Nexus 6 was too large? As detailed in Phone Show 246, what you need is the Nexus 6 Lite, otherwise known as the Moto G 4G 2nd Gen 2015. Motorola really like to confuse the market. Just make sure the one you get has 4G, the 5-inch screen and the twin front speakers, and you'll be fine. Still a terrific device with Android 5 on board and only around £140 or so, SIM-free in the UK. Amazing. Getting to the sharp edge of the top 5 now, and again we have to move right up in price. In fact, let's go all the way to the most expensive regular smartphone in the world, the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge. Well over £800 if you buy it SIM-free. I'm still waiting for this for full review, but I've played with it numerous times, and especially in this official Samsung protective case, I'm very impressed. Just about the best screen, the best camera, the fastest processor, and so on. Premium materials throughout, and that super sexy curved edge to the display, which kind of grows on you. Downsides, other than the cost, well, sealed battery, sealed storage, an arguably outdated home button, plus you're not going to see any of that nice glass on the back because of the case, so it might as well have been plastic. Or indeed leather, which brings me to, and I'm being a bit naughty since I only got to play with the Next phone for a couple of hours, however... But at number 1, I couldn't resist this, the LG G4. I made the launch in London and I'm very impressed. It's 32GB plus micro SD, plus the removable battery and the full leather back. This really kind of ticks all the boxes that Samsung have kind of missed with their Galaxy S6. I know each has its pros and cons, but this G4, cheaper than the S6, with every feature that you could want, including a much, much better camera than most of the competition we've been trying in recent years. It's just a really, really impressive device. I'm going to have to try my hardest to find any faults in this whatsoever, but I will try. Watch this space. I do have my own G4 in for formal review now, and I'm still happy I picked it in the top 5. I'll have a full verdict on the G4 in Phone Show 251. Anyone who knows me, or indeed Ted from the Phone Show Chat podcast, knows that we keep getting drawn back to Nexus wherever possible or practical in the Android world. And here I sit with a Nexus 6 again. When I reviewed it back in the Phone Show 242, I declared it just about the best thing since sliced bread, and that anyone who said it was too large was, well, holding it wrong. Tongue in cheek, of course, and even I said it was a bit too big earlier in this very show. And it is too big for the mainstream, but you're a Phone Show viewer, you're into your mobile tech and you're prepared to live on the edge, as I am sometimes, which is why I'm now trying a month with a Nexus 6 and embarking on a number of Nexus-ish projects. But I thought I'd list at least the reasons why I and others keep getting drawn back to Google's Nexus line. In fact, I have 10, always a cool number to juggle with. Number 1, the Nexus devices always get the very latest Android OS kernels and Google ideas ahead of the rest of the Android pack, for which the time gap is often 6 months, which is an eternity to be waiting if you're on another Android smartphone, still waiting for the latest bug fixes and innovations. And sometimes the updates don't come at all. Better get a Nexus. The interface and applications haven't been messed around with here by a third-party manufacturer keen to impose their own skin apps and services. Motorola, who make the Nexus 6, is the least culpable here, since it essentially uses stock Android plus a few tweaks. But Samsung, HTC, Sony, Huawei and LG all have to take some stick for sticking their oar into Android's UI. Not always for the worst, but usually for the most confusing. Number 3, along the same lines, there's also no bloatware here on the Nexus 6 here. I'm looking at my own app selection, so ignore those. Nothing bundled just because someone did a deal with a publisher to make some money on the side. Nothing hanging around from a previous device or platform that has to be included for legal or amortizing reasons. Number 4, again, there are no carrier restrictions or additions. I can put whatever SIM I want in a Nexus and I'll never be bothered by carrier-specific locks ever again. Number 5, specifications are usually at or at least near the cutting edge, so you don't really ever get left behind with a Nexus. Even my old Galaxy Nexus from 4 years ago has Lollipop 5.1, as I showed in a Phone Show 247. In fact, you have to go back 5 years to this Nexus S to really find a Nexus that's starting to show its limitations. Number 6, also at the boundary and sometimes beyond it, Nexus devices push form factors. The original 4.7-inch screen Galaxy Nexus was outrageously large when launched, really, yet was clearly a vision of the future, as evidenced by us considering the Galaxy Nexus now all a bit quaint, and with all flagships now well into the 5-inch screen territory. The Nexus 6 at 6 inches is still large, but who's to say that Google hasn't seen the future of personal computing again? Number 7, Nexus smartphones are usually cheaper than third-party manufacturer offerings of similar spec, and sometimes much cheaper. Think £100 or so less than a SIM-free equivalent from Samsung, LG or HTC, etc., and you won't be far wrong. Number 8, Nexus smartphones are friendly to hackers and developers and geeks. They're trivial to root, to mess around with, to use as a base for trying custom firmwares. In contrast, devices from HTC, Samsung, LG and Sony are often a right royal pain to mess around with in this way. Okay, number 9. I admit I'm getting a little thin as I try to make the full 10 here. So for number 9, I'll just say that the Nexus is a super cool model name deriving from robots back in the classic Blade Runner movie, I believe. Hey, even that had Nexus 6 units explicitly. Number 10. Phew, I made it to 10. But only by pointing out that you can do some very cool things with the Nexus name in terms of logos and animations, thanks to the 5 letters with the central X. I'll stop now. Food for thought anyway, next time you hear Ted or I eulogising a Nexus.